Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and today we're going to be unboxing the 7th Continent. This is actually the second time on the channel that we're doing this, except this time around, it's going to be for the content that came specifically with the most recent Kickstarter, What Goes Up Must Come Down. That's the name of it, if you're looking for it on Kickstarter as a reference. Now, on the channel in the past, we did do an unboxing for the 7th Continent, as well as a full setup, rules, and playthrough. So if you've never heard of the 7th Continent before and this is coming to you as a shock, you definitely want to check those videos out because they'll give you some context as to what you're actually going to be looking at in this video, and it won't confuse you. As I mentioned, there won't be any spoilers. I'll open the boxes as we're doing an unboxing, but card decks I will not be opening during this, so there will be no fear of spoilers happening during these videos. I'm really excited to be redoing this again for the second time and seeing what's new with the 7th Continent, as we do have the What Goes Up Must Come Down expansion box right here. We have an expansion called the Flying Roots right here, Comfort Creatures over here, a Board Game Geek promo pack, a 2nd edition upgrade pack which is behind it, and then below this we actually have a box which includes and houses the playmat for 7th Continent. So we're going to take a look at all these things, and I can tell you some pretty cool stuff comes inside this box as well. And really, this is a kind of 2nd edition or 3rd edition version of the original box. So it kind of gives you a fancier version of that other box. You may not even need to keep the other box because you should be able to fit every single thing into one of them, which is perfect. And most people enjoy that idea where expansions can actually be merged into that single box. So now that we've kind of got that out of the way, you know there won't be any spoilers. You know that if you're looking for information for videos, I've got you covered. Now let's go ahead, flip over this major expansion box right here, see if there's anything on the back we need to read. If there isn't, we're diving straight into the box to find out what's inside. Well, this certainly makes life easy, seeing as most of the back of the box is completely blank, but there is some information at the bottom. So the only information here is the designer or designers in this particular case, the artist, as well as the website for more information. It's a 1 to 4 player game, so yep, solo play is right in there, and it's ages 14 plus. So the very first thing you're going to see when you open up the box is a Dear Backer letter from the actual designers of the game. So this is really cool. If you actually want to go ahead and pause the screen and read it, you can. But this is, again, just a letter from the designers. Next up, we move to additional rules because, again, this is an expansion. It adds upon the original 7th Continent rulebook, so it's probably not going to be as large as that other one was. It's only a sheet of paper or two, so it's going to show things like the additional contents. It's also going to talk about the new card types. We've got white adventure cards now and fate cards, 2 things that were not part of the original ones. We have new game modes, so you have a There is a Traitor Amongst Us mode. That sounds pretty cool. It's optional. We have Prodigy mode, and we have Immortal mode. So there's just new ways to play, which, hey, that's never a bad thing when you're talking about as much content as what's in this 7th Continent game. And again, this is all about being up in the air, high above the air, so moving by hot air balloon is a thing here. So we've got a whole talk about how the weather systems are going to deal with that, the wind, everything's going to be obviously having an impact on that air balloon as you move around. And you've got the moving by barge, so you can actually jump on a raft essentially and be moving around that way. So it's going to talk about how all that works and how you move amongst the cards, but it's only 4 pages in size, not very huge. You've got some new icons you're going to have to get accustomed to, so you can see here that it mentions the new action types like fly, land, steer, tinker, and repair, wait and do nothing, and murder. That's always good. New resources, you got glass, metal, and oil. New action effects and consequences. You have mastery now, weather cards, wind rose, and a bunch of other things going on. The goat here is supposed to be kind of a thank you from the designers, if I am understanding correctly, and so they basically just gave that as a thank you to the individual backers from the game. So that's going to be in here as well. It's kind of one of the favorite characters within the game itself, that world. We next move into the hot air balloon itself, and yes, it wouldn't be a hot air balloon if it wasn't in full punch-out form. So you actually build the hot air balloon, the actual punch-out, put it together, and use it in your game. You also are going to have standees representing all of the characters in the game as well. Now, there should be miniature forms of these, I think, to a certain extent. I don't know if the hot air balloon comes in miniature form, but I think there's some other miniatures in there. Definitely for the heroes, though, there is. And then, so there's not tons and tons of punch-out to do here. But the next one you do have to do is a new punch-out for the action deck. So that's pretty cool. It's always nice to have these. This one actually seems to be ready to come out right away already, which is great. And it just looks super cool. It has the logo that's on the front of the box. Very easy to put forward, no need for instructions, and looks great. And then we get into the meat of what's inside this box. And you can see there is space, and the reason there's space is because, well, you can start merging this stuff together with your prior, 7 continent cards. So as I mentioned before, I'm not going to show you guys any cards that you don't want to see, so don't worry there. These are just dividers, so there's nothing scary there. So as you can see here, we've got some dividers, and really you're going to use these dividers. They're absolutely fantastic to keep things organized across 3 major trays along the bottom of the game here. And there's a number of them here that go for the they basically pick up where the last game left off in terms of the numerical order and go forward from there. You've got this here, which is, I'm not sure what this one is actually. It's a hot air balloon. And this says, when the balloon figure is no longer in play, this divider helps you know which terrain card the balloon is on. Cool. So that's something that's going to be kind of a reference. You'll actually use that. This is absolutely beautiful. This is actually to house cards inside of. That's right. So you're going to go ahead and remove this strap here, and you can see you've got actual sleeved basic pages going through this book where you can put all of your cards into, which is really, really cool. Now, I could be wrong here. This might be a part of the save system. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this is where you put cards that you're saving when you're kind of in between a particular game and you haven't finished it yet, but I think this is absolutely fantastic. It's really nice quality, looks great, and it's got the wonderful 7 right on the front there. The box also comes with 4 standees for the new 4 survivors. Along the bottom of the box is a large amount of cards I'm going to have to unpack. Now this one is safe. I can flip this one over. It's not going to shock you. It's not going to spoil anything. But this is basically what the back of some of the 7th continent cards look like. They have a logo on it. And if you flip this over, this is an example of one of the curse cards. There's no information on it. It just references a curse that's within the game. Nothing spoilerish there. But again, once you start opening this stuff up, and especially you start going through these ones here, these ones actually represent different locations you're going to. They have icons all over them. They even sometimes have numbering or locations on them, so there can be quite a bit of spoiler stuff through there. So I'm not going to show you anything further in that pile, but you can see now clearly the 3 trays that are inside this box. So the trays are awesome that way because once they're filled up, you're able to just pick these things up and put them on the table and go. And the reason why there's so much empty space is because you can use those previous cards from the original version, bring them all into this box, and everything should theoretically fit inside of this thing. I'm going to have to test that theory, but it looks like that's what they're going for here, and this is all the new content. Now, down here in the bottom portion, there's some more stuff hiding. So right here, we've got ourselves some clear bases, which my guess is going to be that the balloon or maybe the raft is going to sit on. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I'll be learning about what that's for very soon. And here's a nice up-close look at those 2 miniatures from the box that I just opened up. So I'm just going to show you the different sides of it. It does have all the kind of bags hanging off the side of the hot air balloon base. You've got propellers there in the back. So this is going to be really cool because you have that grid there and you're going to be able to actually take the standee of the hot air balloon itself and pop it in there, making it look a lot more thematic and cool with the base being an actual miniature, which is interesting. And then you've got this here. Now, I believe this is the barge. I could be thoroughly mistaken on that. And here's a look at the 4 absolutely tiny little miniatures for the survivors inside the game. Now, again, you might be wondering, why are they so small? Well, it's because you're actually using these miniatures on the cards themselves as you traverse through the land. So you can't have a miniature that's like just so large it takes up a ton of the card that you're on. So they kept the size of the miniatures low, but the detail on them is actually pretty good for how tiny they actually are. This guy's actually really, really cool looking. It has 2 individuals kind of back to back. Again, I don't know what the names of these 3 are. I won't know a little bit more about that until I open the card packs up better. But this one here is definitely the goat. So that is the goat that was the additional survivor that I believe was added in as a thank you to the backers. This next addition to the 7th continent is the playmat. So we're going to go ahead and just open the box on this one. I'm actually going to put the playmat out as much as I possibly can on camera so you guys can get a good idea as to what it looks like. So here's a look at the playmat for 7th Continent. It is really cool looking. It goes from the A right here all the way up to G, and then it has 1 down here all the way across to 7. So again, you can kind of map out your grid, and that's what you're going to be using when you save things. You can kind of know exactly what locations are where, and the continent is way huger than this playmat showing. Really, you want to think about this playmat being a snapshot of where you currently are on the island. So that's really interesting. The one thing that is the downside to this playmat is there is a crease up the middle. That's because it was folded over into a box while it was being sent, so obviously it's got a crease in it. I'm going to be able to hopefully just spray that crease with some water, some light water, not going to soak it down, and then I'm going to roll it from the bottom up instead of left to right. Left to right would actually increase the crease. I'd rather roll it this way and then house it like that for a little bit, and then also maybe try laying it flat and putting some heavy stuff on it to see if I can get most of that crease out. I believe I'll be able to. I've been able to do that with a number of other playmats that have come folded. One mention I will make, though, to the creator or designer of this product is if you have the option in the future to send playmats or create playmats for games, definitely roll them. It might be a cost increase putting them in a tube and rolling them and sending them out versus folding them and putting them in a box. But I can tell you right now, in terms of how they actually show up for the consumer, it's much, much better if they're rolled. They last a lot longer, they don't look as bad, and then there's just not a crease in it that the customer has to actually deal with when they get it. So that's just one thing, one gripe in a long list of positives in terms of the production value for 7th Continent. So, but at the end of the day, hey, it's a playmat, that's cool, it's going to add some immersion, and it's going to just look a little bit cooler than it would otherwise with just cards lying all over the table. So I do like this whole grid placement situation. Next up, we got the Board Game Geek promo pack, which was an actual add-on during the Kickstarter, which you could have added on for, I believe, a few dollars or so. This is one I'm not going to show any more than what's on the front of this 54 card. I'm not flipping it over, but essentially this will add some extra cards and some extra things that may or may not change the world of 7th Continent as you go through it. There's also a 2nd edition upgrade pack now, because I actually had a 1st edition, which was luckily not in the same window as the ones that needed the kind of full 2nd edition upgrade pack. I only needed a handful of cards to get mine kind of up to date with some of the incorrect coloring and sizing and things like that most people experience. Mine's a lot lesser of a problem. There are some individuals that had to be sent an entire reset of the 7th Continent because their entire set had been miscolored or missized, and that's a whole other thing. But the great news is the customer service aspect of it was phenomenal. They did a great job in actually providing those to customers that were affected. I think we should check out this new expansion, the Flying Roots. Let's go ahead and flip it over. Looks pretty cool. The back here says the Flying Roots. It says strange phenomena are at work on the continent, like these plants that grow to full size before tearing themselves from the earth itself to explore the world around them. Whether they help or hinder you, these Flying Roots will certainly have some surprises in store. So you're going to actually get some miniatures inside of the box, which it shows here, plus some cards. So let's go ahead and open this up and see exactly what's inside. Again, we won't be looking at the cards in depth. Inside the box are 2 actually sizable packs of cards, surprisingly. I was only expecting 1, but there's actually 2 of them in there. So a decent amount of cards come in this expansion that, again, if you're familiar with the game and how it's actually laid out, you're going to have these numbers, and that's where you're going to be slotting them in using the organizers and the dividers that are presented for you. Of course, if the numbers match numbers you already have, you're going to basically mix them in. So there are a whole bunch of people on Board Game Geek that have decided whether or not to merge all expansions in or just keep the base game and merge one expansion at a time. There's all kinds of talk on which way you should go that way, but really it is up to you completely. The next thing here is the miniatures. This is what the miniatures look like. There's a lot of plastic on them right now, a lot of glare. I'm going to take them out. We'll take a closer look. So inside of this expansion, you have 6 of these bulbous, like, I don't even know what to call them, the Flying Roots. I guess they're just roots that are just, I don't know what's going on with them, and that'll be the fun part, is finding out, are they going to hurt us? Are they going to help us? Who knows? We got to find out more about them, but the actual miniature itself is pretty nice, and I believe it's going to blend in nicely with the actual content within the game as well. In terms of the heroes, or I call them heroes, but they're really survivors because they're not heroes of anything. They're just trying to survive a nasty curse. They're probably about 1/3 the size of this thing, so it's a decent sized miniature. I believe the other miniature is barely where the width of one of my fingers, so pretty good. This is at least double, if not maybe 3 times the size of a survivor. So pretty nice looking, very interesting designs on them, and there's 6 of them in the box. The last thing I want to mention is that inside this box there actually is an instructional slip. It's not very big. It's almost the size of a regular card that comes from one of these packs of cards that's in the box. It's about this size, double-sided, and really has some information rules-wise as to how these things work, plus how you merge them in and all that good stuff. I don't want to show that to you because I think that might actually introduce some spoilers. It does talk about some new actions that are possible and things like that. So again, and it does talk about some mechanisms, I think, that might introduce themselves with this. So I want to keep all that stuff, you know, secret for you to figure out once you actually pick this up on your own. But that is the Flying Roots expansion. Let's move over to the Comfort Creatures. The Comfort Creatures pack actually looks pretty cool, at least on the front of the box. The back of the box, what does it say here? What bizarre creature could be nestled in this strange egg, and what will it become? There are several ways to find out. That's actually really cool. So I guess you have the possibility of finding an egg and then finding out what that's going to actually do in terms of an impact to you on your adventure. I'm guessing that could be good or bad, but that's pretty cool. They are called Comfort Creatures, so you'd think that'd be a good thing. But I believe this is going to just be a deck of cards, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. There should also be an instructional pamphlet in there, but again, I'm going to keep that spoiler-free. So after opening up the box, the only thing inside of note is the cards, and they're this thick. I'm not going to flip them over because that's definitely going to have some spoilers. There's also an instructional pamphlet in there as well that I want to mention, but again, similar to the Flying Roots expansion, I'm not going to show it on the screen. And that's going to conclude the unboxing for the 7th continent. What goes up must come down. A Kickstarter unboxing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this was informative, and as always, keep on rolling solo.